weirdos!
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, you weirdos. Jim here, and it's that time of week again. It is time for our books of the week, and this is a fifth week of comics. That's an annuals week to you and me. And really, Marvel doesn't do that many annuals that kind of way, but DC does follow that schedule. They don't like to mess up their book scheduling, so they usually throw a bunch of minis and also annuals. And that's what we did get at DC. But overall, when you do have a fifth week of comics, you don't get a ton of books. You get a lot less books than what we are used to. And because of that, my list is fairly short. I end up having one DC book, two Marvel, and an indie. So I think this might be one of the quickest episodes that we've had since I started up this whole books of the week. Now, I'll tell you, if you are, say, interested in some of the other DC books, you might be able to guess what book. Well, maybe not, because there were some big ones. But if you were like, man, I really would like to hear some reviews of those other DC books, I'll tell you right now, you can go and listen to our DC Comics podcast. Now, I'm saying this because there's a little twist. The little twist here is that this week, because it's an annuals week, because it's a fifth week of comics, our podcast, the DC Comics podcast, is a Patreon-only show. Now, I say that to let you know that if you go over right now to patreon.com/weirdscience, you can sign up for a free 7-day trial, and you can listen to me and Eric talk about Titans Beast World number 6, Batman Superman World's Finest Annual, Batman Offworld number 3, Batman and Robin Annual, Trinity Special number 1, and Alan Scott the Green Lantern number 4. Those are the books that we talked about on the show. That's about 3 hours long. Again, I just wanted to throw this out there. I try not to push these things too much yet, but that's a big thing for us over at our Patreon. There'll be a link in the show notes if you do want to go check it out. We have a lot of other shows, a lot of DC, Marvel, indie, and manga shows on the feed as well, usually a show or two a day. So if you like podcasts, it's kind of the place to be. But we'll jump into this, and I wonder if people could guess what DC book I ended up picking. It's my favorite book at DC right now. It's also kind of my favorite book, I think, overall in comics, which is crazy. It's Batman Offworld number 3, written by Jason Aaron and art by Doug Mankey. I really like the art in this, and I continue to like this story of a kind of year 2 Batman in space trying to learn how to fight the alien. He ended up, if you remember, he ended up facing off against an alien in Gotham. Never did that before, didn't know what was going on. So he goes out to the Slag Galaxy to face an Ikarian, Captain Sin. And it's weird because this is obviously the third issue. He actually does that in this issue. I thought we were just going to go through these, deal, and in the finale, he would fight this Captain Sin. But lo and behold, he actually fights him in this issue and kind of hands his ass to him. So that's kind of satisfying. But instead of heading back to Earth, heading back to Gotham, he has heard of a Black Sun mining company that's doing bad things. And Batman can't just leave people in jeopardy, whether or not it's in Gotham or in space. So he's going to take it to the Black Sun mining company and the Black Sun twins that we do see in this issue. And they're kind of creepy, so kind of good villains. We'll see how that works out. Now, why I love this book, it's pretty much the cast of characters. Batman has what I kept saying was a Guardians of the Galaxy team, and then it kind of dawned on me and Eric when we were talking about it this week on our podcast. That's on the Patreon, by the way. The idea that, no, it's almost like an outer space outsiders, an outer space-siders, I'd like to call it. I think that works, right? But it is really cool. You end up having the Tamaranian Ione. Of course, we get do with Punchbot. Punchbot is back. That's something that I was hoping we would get. Also has a Blade Wolf, the wolf that he ended up fighting at the end of last issue. They've kind of come to an agreement. I like that this wolf kind of comes to the agreement of, hey, I'm like the Predator, and I just want to fight and track down and hunt the best game there is. And he thinks, so Batman would be able to do that. But this cast of character, I never thought that we'd get something like this. I am having a lot of fun with it. And it's it's in continuity. I mean, it's in that little weird pocket continuity of a flashback from that, like I said, year 2 deal. And I did have some people question this when we put it on our $25 do or die pull list. The idea of, oh man, why don't the aliens know Batman? Well, if you read it, you'll understand. And then it's that little, pocket deal where, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's pretty clever that he's out there and he is fighting aliens, learning how to fight aliens. But it looks like by the end of this, these Black Sun twins, it's going to take more than punching to do that. And that's why I worry. I need Punchbot to be full in, but it's going to take more than just Punchbot, I think, to take these two down. Like I said, they're pretty creepy. I'll tell you, I love the issue. I didn't like it as much as the first two, only slightly down. There's a weird pacing issue because in the middle, suddenly you have a flashback to Batman in Gotham again, where he first ran into the Ikarian, and I don't think you needed it with just 3 issues in, but it's there to remind you what all is going on and why Batman is in space with that mission. So I understand why, but I just didn't think you needed it. But it's just slightly down. I'll even tell you, the last issue I gave a 9, this one I gave an 8.9. That's how slightly down it is. But that is my book from DC. And again, the finale to Titans Beast World, I thought the finale was a little down. I still like the event as a whole, and we ended up, and I'll probably link to the video where me and Eric wrapped up the whole event. I did like the event. I thought that it was a little bit too convenient, a little bit too forced and rushed. The ending kind of put me down, but I still like the whole deal. I did not like the World's Finest annual at all. I thought all the stories in there were kind of sus. I didn't really like them. I did like the Batman and Robin annual enough, just not enough to put it in my best of the week, but I still had fun with that. And we won't even get into the Alan Scott or the Trinity special because I didn't like those much at all either. But that's the DC side of things. Again, if you wanted to listen to full reviews of those, you can go check out our Patreon. But we'll move on to Marvel. And I have 2 books at Marvel. Now, I didn't say it at the beginning, but my man Zach was going to join me to do this episode, and he ended up putting Incredible Hulk number 8 on the list. I almost did, and then I was like, you know what? I need the story to progress more, but since he put it in, I'm going to keep that on. It was just like slightly from that. You know what I mean? It was almost there for me, but since he put it, and I do like it. It's one of my favorite books at Marvel, maybe my favorite book at Marvel, obviously written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. And I do love the Nick Klein art, which does look like, I say it all the time, blacklight posters on each page. You end up getting the continuing story. And that's my biggest problem with the series. I need some more progression. It is more of Monster of the Month. I need these things to kind of come together. Let's get to the eldest. Let's get to the mother of horrors. In this, we have Ginny DeGaulle, the crazy, evil spirit from within that is controlling Hulk. At one point, Hulk's able to break free of it with the help of the Ghost Rider in the book. Don't really get full out explanation of the Ghost Rider, but he's there protecting that kid. That's enough for me, while the Hulk is protecting Charlie, the girl that has been going around with him. But there is that bit in the middle where you're fighting the Word Double. You're fighting Ginny DeGaulle. You have the eldest being mentioned. We're there where, oh my God, the mother of horrors. My God. There's a lot of things stacking up. And I think we need to progress a little more, but it still looks great. And when you do end up having the Hulk kind of snap out of it, like Cher slaps him, yells, snap out of it. He snaps out of it, more like a Slim Jim maybe. But when that happens and you get the team up of Hulk and the Ghost Rider where they take down Ginny DeGaulle like it's an AT-AT on Hoth, I'm in. Like that was pretty cool. And then at the end, before the Ghost Rider leaves, says, hey, and even pulls out the deal where, yeah, the Ghost Rider was kind of, called to arms by the eldest, but kind of was able to shove that aside, was able to maintain this little bit of sanity type of deal and not become one of these monsters that are fighting Hulk. So that was kind of a cool play. But at the end says, hey, protect Charlie. She's going to be your weak spot. That's where they're going to come for. The eldest is going to try to take advantage of it. And it's a neat little play because you've had Hulk and Banner kind of think, hey, Charlie, he shouldn't be with us. we're a danger. You being with us is putting you in danger. And then again, being a selfish deal, you could even think. And it's also like tying him down a little, slowing him down. But he really likes Charlie. Charlie seems to like Hulk more than Banner, but still knowing that they're going to use Charlie as this, weak link to maybe get to the Hulk, that adds some more stakes to it too, because that the Hulk doesn't want that. Again, a really cool looking issue. I did like the parts. I just need and hope that we get going with more of a story where everything can come together, not just Monster of the Month. My other book at Marvel, it might not be a surprise to most people because it's the only Marvel book I believe that I reviewed this week on the YouTubes. It is Spider-Boy number 3. I know that all the Dan Slott haters are rolling their eyes. I like it. And I like that Spider-Boy is, kind of getting a room to kind of percolate here. Dan Slott setting up his own rogues gallery. I mentioned this on the review. I didn't want, or I was afraid that what we'd get is, Doc Ock Jr., Goblin Jr., that sort of thing. Instead of the lizard, we'll fight the salamander. It's not like that, though. He has his own kind of goofy rogues gallery, but it fits the character. You have Killionaire, and in the first part, there's always 2 stories. In the first part, you end up having it continues the Taskmaster Killionaire story from the issue before, where they ended up using part of the super adaptoid. They were able to steal a hand. So there's not a lot of material. So what you end up having Dr. Stillwell make out of it, instead of a super adaptoid, you end up having kind of an action figure super adaptoid, a little thing, but it fits the Spider-Boy deal. And you end up having Bailey able to convince the super adaptoid action figure, while it's being Thor, that what they're doing is quite not worthy. And it's a shame because this whole action figure that ends up being made could have been a cool play to continue and wants to join up with Bailey, Spider-Boy. But Bailey says, no, you don't want to be a sidekick. I don't need a sidekick. You go. And I'm like, I don't know. That would have been kind of cool. Maybe a little overpowered, though, with the way things go. But you have a second story, too, where Thor is actually, the real Thor, is actually fighting a crazy Asgardian spider. It's a monster. And it's that cliche deal of thinking this monster's attacking, but only because you don't understand it. It's scared. It ends up, and the only way that they do find this out is because Bailey, Spider-Boy, uses his beast mode and turns into that spider. A lot of people didn't realize that that was something that happens with Bailey, but that is a thing that does. He ends up turning into kind of a living spider, like a real spider boy. The problem is every time he does it, people see it and they freak out. They treat him like a monster. And so he doesn't want to do it, but he has to. And that's like the little hero's choice in an all ages book, where should I become this kind of monster boy? Because if people see it, they're going to end up reporting on it. It has been in the paper, and he wants people to like him, but he does have to do it. And he does end up saving, or at least telling Thor, hey, don't fight this thing. It's actually scared. It wants to go back home. It all works out. And then at the end, you get the big villain, Madame Monstrosity, who was the one who actually genetically created Spider-Boy. So that all wraps up in there. And I want more of that. It's the second part of the story, but I really want to and hope that they expand the Mother Monstrosity deal so that Bailey can go and help his friend who doesn't really remember him, but do that. But it's an all ages book. And like I said, it's Dan Slott's working on getting his own little fun rogues gallery. You're not going to get real heavy hitters in it. He's just a little kid. So it's cool that he fights other kids. This Killionaire is just a bratty kid. Oh, but it really reminds me of like a combination of like a Lex Luthor, but also an arcade. Like those combined kind of deal. Kind of fun. He says, and when he gets away at the end, I'll get you, Spider-Boy. So that's kind of fun. But one of the other things that I like about the book that I mentioned in the review is that he's also a flawed character a bit. He doesn't have a family, so he's kind of homeless. He's living at the feast deal, but he doesn't have money. So he's trying to do like superheroing for money earlier in the issue until his friend Christina says, oh, you can't do that. That's not what heroes do. But he's trying to figure out what he can do, even goes and tries to apply to be on the Avengers. Jarvis slams the door in his face, which you would. Again, a little kid's not going to be able to do that, but it's that idea where you don't have, Captain America showing up and saying, oh my God, that Spider-Boy's the best guy ever. Like, how they push characters. I'm looking and talking about Miss Marvel, obviously, but so it's just that fun little deal. And what I like about it, to end this bit of Spider-Boydom, is that if you don't want to get involved, you don't have to. You just don't have to read his book. And yeah, it goes in and out of the Superior Spider-Man, but I think that most people aren't going to read us because of Dan Slott anyway, so they wouldn't read those. But no fuss, no muss. If you don't want to read it, you don't have to. I'm enjoying it, and it is something that I think younger kids could enjoy as well as old fogies like me. That's what they mean by all ages. I get it now. But that is the two books. Those are the two books at Marvel. Can't talk all of a sudden. And I'll finish this up with the indie book. Again, I don't think anybody's going to be surprised. It's Duke, #2, written by Joshua Williamson with art by Tom Riley. I didn't mention, too, I do want to mention that Paco Medina and Ty Templeton with the Spider-Boy art, pretty good. But Joshua Williamson and Tom Riley for Duke #2, it's good. I'm not a G.I. Joe guy. I'm not even quite a Transformers guy. I say that. I become both because of this whole deal. But overall, I'm not one who would say, oh, my God, I know all these characters from G.I. Joe. But it doesn't really matter because Joshua Williamson is doing a great job of introducing things. And boy, I was so into this. This issue flies by. And it's not like flies by like, oh, man, there was 800 spread pages and that was a ripoff. It flies by because it's just written so well. And the pacing is just really, really good. If you are a G.I. Joe fan, you'll love the idea that you get Clutch, Rock and Roll, Stalker, Baroness at the end, Destro even. There are a lot of characters dropping in, and that's kind of the fun play of even the, this book and the Cobra Commander and the Transformers deal is, oh man, who are they going to have show up next? That's always cool. But yeah, Rock and Roll and Stalker go and grab Clutch and Duke because Duke is on the run. And we'll see what happens because at the moment they're in a jail cell next to the Baroness, which is crazy. And she says, hey, we kind of have this, common deal. We both want to get free. So why don't we join up? Let's get free. And that's kind of a cool play. The art, I like the art a lot. Tom Riley's art has that old school charm to it in my mind. And it really looks really, really cool. I'd love to hear from people who are G.I. Joe fans and what they think of this, because I think it's pretty darn good. Now we just need Sergeant Slaughter to show up. That's all I need, Sergeant Slaughter, and we are in. And I didn't mention at the beginning like I usually do, but I really would love to hear what everybody else's books of the week are. If you agree with me, if you disagree, but more of the, what is your list? What are the books that you really like? I say it all the time, but I do use that to see, oh, that's what people are interested in. That's a selfish thing. I could be like, oh, everybody likes that. Maybe I'll do a review of that. But also, it shows me, or at least maybe introduces me to things that I didn't read, haven't been reading. Now, obviously, there's going to be books that are way down the line, like, Spawn books. There's so much back deal that I'm not probably going to be able to jump into that. But if you do like it, let me know. I actually defer to my man Gray on the Spawn things. But yeah, let me know everything you like, didn't like, all of that in the comments. This is kind of a loosey-goosey deal this week. Not a lot of books, but yeah, check out the show notes. Like I said, if you want to hear us go, pretty much, well, not pretty much. We went in depth of the DC stuff. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/weirdscience, but also check out our Marvel podcast that went up on Saturday. All that stuff. But that is it. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to get out of here. And I'll talk to you later.
You are all weirdos.